The Seattle Mariners return home tomorrow to take on the Chicago Cubs. They won the last game in Toronto. We're going to talk a little bit about the Toronto series and then break down what we're going to see against the Chicago Cubs and what we need to see the rest of the way out of this team as they start this brand new homestand. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 77 of the Hit It Here podcast, part of the Bleav Network, the Chris Flexen episode of the Hit It Here podcast. And I'm here with Joe. Joe, how are you?
Feeling good about old friend Chris Flexen. You know, the Braves, they had to go give him a pat down because they thought that he was using sticky stuff in the start. That of all guys to go get checked for sticky stuff, Chris Flexen would be like one of the last people I would bet on if they were using sticky stuff. I don't think they have those kind of bets on Bet Online, but check out the other stuff that's available to you with a quick word from Bet Online. Thank you once again to Bet Online for being the sponsor for the Hit It Here podcast here. Bet Online is your guys' number one source for all the summer sports action, from the MLB to the NBA to the NHL, even to golf. Bet Online has you guys covered with all the latest stats, news, and scores available to you guys to follow your favorite teams or specific players as well. Get the latest odds and lines, including the latest team matchups, player props, on any sport that you really could think of. Head to the website today or even use your mobile device to get in on the action. You guys know that BetOnline has some of the best mobile coverage and desktop coverage, ease of access, so you can place your bets anywhere. And if I'm being honest with you, the MLB season, it's kicking off. Now's the time to get in. Like, everybody's kind of like back in the groove. MLB would be my sport to bet on right now. Head to BetOnline, use promo code Bleav, that's BLEAV, on your first deposit for that 50% welcome bonus. Bet Online, where the game starts. So obviously, the Toronto Blue Jays series, there's not a whole lot to celebrate aside from the win coming out of Toronto. You know, the final game of the series, you take a win, you salvage the series, because getting swept on the back on the the heels of a 1-2 series loss against the Brewers, like if you go that road trip 1-5 and you're coming home to face the Cubs Friday night, Apple TV, the vibes are going to be astronomically low. So the Mariners, vibes game one, not great offensively. Again, Castillo did not have his stuff. Game two, same thing. George Kirby giving up 5 earned. Offense battled back a little bit, but not enough. We finally got an ace level start out of a Mariners starting pitcher not named Bryce Miller in this, through this round of the rotation. Colton's ace, Cy Young for the Mariners this year, Logan Gilbert, 7 2/3, gives up a solo home run to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. that he hit. It was a tank, like, bro, got every single ounce of it. But 7 2/3, 5 hits, 1 earned, 8 Ks. We needed it from Logan Gilbert. And looking at the score line aside for the final game, 6-1. Colton, the offense was not doing Gilbert any favors in game 3.
Yeah, if you just take a look at the box score, you're like, oh, the offense wasn't too bad. But it was atrocious until the 10th inning. Like, Mariners they scored once in regular time. What's what I'm looking for? in the first 9 innings. What's it called in soccer, bro?
I can't, like, I'm like panicking. Anyway. I don't even know what to say right now. It's not, what is it?
Regulation,
yeah, but like, what is it in baseball? Is there a term for it? The first 9 innings?
Nope.
Weird.
It's just called the baseball game, I think.
Yeah.
It's just called the baseball game. Anyway.
Quarters, Anyways.
The Mariners scored once on a J.P. Crawford single to drive in
Dylan Moore.
Moore.
A manufactured run, stole a base, had a bloody elbow.
Yeah.
That he had to go get, taken care of. But he scores on a single by JP. But like you're saying, that's it for the offense, really, until the 10th.
Yeah, the 10th was a big one for the Mariners. Obviously, Mitch Garver was a man-for-man out there at second base. Didn't matter who it was, because they did pinch run Luke Raley then, but didn't matter because Cal Raleigh owns the Toronto Blue Jays and John Schneider, that dumbass.
By the way.
He's an idiot. Dude's an idiot, bro. Like, you angered the probably hardest guy to anger on this team,
Mm-hmm.
You angered Cal Raleigh. He's going to take it out on you, and he did. He had 2 homers in this series alone. His first 2 homers of the year, 1 right-handed, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
And the Mariners were up 3-1 at that point, but they weren't done, which is really nice to see from this team, is that they're playing a little bit of add-on. They didn't get the 1 big homer, and they call it quits. And in the end, we saw a base knockout of Mitch. We saw a base knockout of Ty. scoring some extra runs there, and the Mariners went up 6-1. And at that point, Ryan Stanek came in to shut it down. And that is a win where maybe if they would have just done that over the first 9 innings, would have had a lot better things to say about this team. They did it anyway. A win is a win. But the offense still, especially Julio in particular, looked bad. And we need that to turn around. And Joe and I talked a little bit because we've streamed over the past couple of days. So a lot of the things we're saying right now are probably going to be things you've already heard about this series. But nonetheless, when the Mariners get back to Seattle, I am still under the impression they should have a team meeting. But maybe it shouldn't be so vulgar like it should have been if they would have lost this game.
Yeah.
Like they get back to Seattle, they're like, hey, all right, that's baseball, baby. Let's do that. Julio.
More of that.
More of that. More winning, please.
Yeah, more wins. More scoring more runs than the other team, please.
Yeah.
Put that on your daily agenda every single day. Check it off at the end of the night, kind of a vibe.
Yeah. I'd also just like to mention that the Diamondbacks did just sign another old friend of the Seattle Mariners, in Colton Wong.
So, oh, really?
Now a member of the Diamondbacks minor league system. So
okay, I have to assume it's because like Perdomo's injured and maybe Blaze Alexander's not doing everything that they've hoped for. But good for Colton Wong if he makes any sort of impact for the Diamondbacks. But anything you want to touch on from the first 2 games of this series? I kind of glossed right over them, but like Dom Canzone hit another homer in this series. Good for Dom. I think there's been some bright spots, like Josh Rojas is still playing well. Go ahead.
Problem with you.
What's that?
The other day, I think it was during the stream that you did solo on Sunday. You were like, oh, Dom Canzone hit a garbage time home run. Blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, you were singing the praises of William Contreras hitting a home run off of Josh Rojas.
Yeah.
You want to talk garbage time?
I'm just trying to push your narrative. Oh, like I'm trying to, lessen your ego. Your guy, Ty France, is better than my guy, Josh Rojas, according to the stream. And if you guys are listening to this and you're not, and like haven't been a part of the streams, make sure you're subbed to the channel. Put notifications on. Like you'll get notified when we go live. Hanging out in the streams is one of my favorite parts of doing this whole thing. Because we get to chat, interactive, like live. Like, sure, sometimes it pisses us off because like vibes can be bad. But that's also fun because then we can just like, go back and forth. So I implore you guys to check out a live stream if you haven't already. Yeah, dude, it's just for the bit. Like, obviously, Dom Canzone hitting nukes is sick. It's sick. Oh, you're gonna make that face now because you think I'm like trying to backpedal. I'm backpedaling on my point of view here. No, I'm just trying to push your narrative down.
You can't ride a bike.
Of course, yeah. No one has to know that, but now they do. You can't do a somersault in water, idiot.
True, that's true.
You'll drown faster than I'll die falling off a bike. All right, how about that? Anyways, the Blue Jays series, Colton. Not a whole lot to write home about in the first 2 games that like I really want to talk about. I think the bullpen actually did a fine job shutting it down after the starter exited, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like Tyson Miller, Brett DeGuys, like guys that we called up because of, some injuries to Colin Snyder, and Lord help Cody Bolton and his kidney stones. I've been there. Lord help Cody Bolton.
You've had kidney stones?
I have had them once. I had it at work. It was awful.
Anyway, yeah.
We don't need to go into it.
That's, I think the first time I've ever heard of anyone going on the injured list
for
kidney stones. Yeah, like that sucked. Yeah, if I just had to give a few bullet points for this series, just kind of pitching other than Logan, starting pitching other than Logan, still not great. Mm-hmm. Got to get it figured out. Offense, still not great. Got to get it figured out. Game 3 against the Blue Jays, all those things did happen. It took a little bit for the offense to get going. It took a while, obviously, till the 10th inning, but Logan looked fantastic. Again, the bullpen was good. Big play by Jorge Polanco to save the game with the bases loaded there and get Andres Munoz out of the jam because I was convinced once the bases were loaded, like, that's it.
Yeah, game's over.
That's it. GG's. So hopefully that's a big team morale win for them. They're able to flip it around after, a big moment by Jorge Polanco. Hopefully that helps them settle in with the team. Big, 10th inning where the Mariners put up 5 runs. So moving on now to this Cubs series, Joe. What are we looking at when it comes to the pitching matchups?
Game 1 is Jordan Wicks, who is left-handed Trent Thornton. They look like they could be related. So far on the year, he's had 2 starts, only gone 8 2/3 across those 2 starts. Pitched to a 4.15 ERA, he's given up 11 hits, 4 earned. He is on the mound against Bryce Miller Friday night. It's a lefty. Expect the lefty, the right-handed heavy matchup against the lefty. So Dylan Moore will be in the starting lineup again. Cal gets a day off on Thursday. Maybe right-handed Cal is back in there, and then we'll see. There'll be some interesting decisions to be made. Like Polanco got moved down to the final Blue Jays game when Kikuchi was on the mound. If that's consistent, I wouldn't be surprised if Polanco's batting fifth again, with Julio or JP Julio tie being 1, 2, 3. Haniger will be 4 again with Polanco 5. The pitching advantage, I think, we're not saying it anymore because you guys should know already. Bryce Miller looked phenomenal against Milwaukee. 7 innings, shutout ball. The Brewers are playing better than the Cubs. Do the Cubs have firepower on offense with, like, say, Suzuki, Christopher Morel, Cody Bellinger? Like, there's guys. There are guys. Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner, Ian Happ. There are guys. But I'm hoping a return to home, Bryce Miller will be able to replicate what he did against the Brewers and stay consistent on the mound. Because what we need out of starting pitching, I don't really care about, the dominant outings. I want consistency. I want 6 innings, keeping your team 6 innings at a minimum, I would say. Keeping your team within the game, within reason, giving your offense a chance to win you the ball game. And I have faith that Bryce Miller can do that here as well. Do you have anything you want to touch on for game 1, and maybe like an offensive guy you want to like hopefully stand out, or like someone you might see getting a day off?
Yeah, so I got a couple things here. I think that when you are talking consistency for this starting rotation, it really just comes down to quality starts. We need 6 innings, 3 earned runs or less. Like, you don't need to be Logan Gilbert, and your literal one mistake beat a Vladdy Guerrero. Like, we don't need that. I would love it.
Yeah, every single
But
time.
it doesn't have to happen. Like, if you can give your team 6 innings with 3 earned runs or less, then it's on the offense. A normal offense should be able to overcome that on most nights to then go out there and put up 3+.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Mariners offense, so I don't know. When talking about guys getting days off, I think maybe they give Cal the day off on Friday, just so he gets 2 consecutive. I've talked about this. I think the Jorge Polanco should get a day off. Like, I think that day you put like Josh Rojas over there at second base and give Polanco the day off, or maybe you move Dylan Moore to second base and have Rayleigh and Canzone in the lineup. I'm not sure. Give Polanco the day off. Give him 2 consecutive days off to just kind of relax, get settled in, maybe just take in a baseball game, with the team instead of basically having to go out there and bat in the 3-hole every single day. Mm-hmm. I think that moving him down the lineup is smart. I think that playing with the lineup right now is smart. Ty France, I hope he's in the top 5 again for the next 2 games against a lefty. I think that Mitch Garver's going to need a day off soon as well. They probably shouldn't have Polanco and Garver have the day off together.
Yeah.
So maybe they give Garver the day off Friday so he gets back-to-back, and then Polanco gets the day off the next day. But that does bring us into the next game, Joe. Tell me about it.
Shota Imanaga, guy who has not given up an earned run this year across his 2 starts. Only 10 innings pitched, so he went 6 against Colorado, 4 against the Dodgers, but 10 innings pitched, 12 strikeouts. He's only given up 4 hits, hasn't walked anybody. Imanaga has looked great, and he is on the mound against Emerson Hancock, who did not look great in his last start. This one, if I'm going to kind of go with what you're saying about Garver and Polanco each getting a game off in this series, I feel like you give Polanco the day off against Imanaga and you have Garver play, like maybe, because like, I don't know, I feel like if there's a guy that I don't know where the logic is there, because either way, you're then having Josh Rojas or someone who maybe isn't in an advantage position playing against a lefty. So who would you rather face, a tougher lefty, Garver or Polanco? Given the track record, maybe Garver. But either way, I think, giving each one of them a day off to start this series might not be a bad idea. But with that being said, say Garver's getting the day off against Imanaga, I would go with Rojas at second, Urias at third, and give Polanco even like a DH day. Like, Sure, he's playing, but maybe he's not in the field. So you could try something like that just to break it apart. Maybe if he's not on the field having to worry about defensive miscues or what have you. Hopefully, the over the shoulder, the Willie Mays catch helps him turn it around. It's like a Willie Mays catch, it's close enough. It was
I
close enough.
guess.
Hopefully, that turns around some of the defensive woes, but I don't know, maybe just getting him off the field, having him just like be in the dugout. You're saying taking the game with the boys, but also having to go up there and hit might be a good thing for him. But yeah, Imanaga, it's going to be a tough matchup for the Mariners on Saturday.
Yeah, I look to, like you said, I think Garver should be the one in the lineup that day because you need your best unit out there against Imanaga. He's going to be tough, and I look to guys like Julio Rodriguez. He has to get it going. He has to. I'm not saying he needs to go out there and hit 500 home runs every at bat, but he just needs to start producing for the team. Whether that be taking your walks, moving a runner over, what have you, back to fundamental baseball. Because in his last game against the Blue Jays, where he struck out 4 times, he was worthless. And that is the unfortunate reality of him at the plate right now. And don't get me wrong, he's had his at bats where he's put together good at bats this year most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But we cannot have games like we saw out of him in the last game in Toronto. We can't have them snowball. And moving forward, I do think that Julio should get a day off soon as well. I don't want to see Julio being run out there 157 times this year. But I think that with Emerson Hancock on the mound, and this is something that we talked a little bit about in stream, he's scheduled to start. One of 2 things I think should be talked about with this. A, the Mariners could skip his start. They could.
They want
because they have the off day and everyone would still be on normal rest. They could skip Emerson Hancock's start and start Luis Castillo that day, George in the finale of the series. Or they hope that Bryce gets deep on Friday when it's a Apple TV game. So I don't know about anybody getting deep on Friday, but except for the hitters,
Of course, just taking the ball deep. Exactly.
But assuming that Bryce can get deep in Friday's game, you have the bullpen at your disposal. The leash on Emerson Hancock needs to be short because we can't have him giving up 10 runs. Can't. Like this Mariners team right now needs a win, and they just need to get on a little bit of a roll. I think once they get rolling, they're going to be fine. But they've been just spinning their tires so far this season. So let's say he gives up a couple of runs in the 3rd inning, pull him.
Yeah.
Like that. Sorry, bud. Like we're going to Sauce. We're going to Trent Thornton, and that's that for Emerson Hancock. The way that the off days are set up, the Mariners do have the opportunity to skip guys if they want to, and it just so happens that this time it falls to being able to skip Emerson Hancock. In my opinion, that's what you do. In my opinion, that is what the Mariners should be doing on Friday. It doesn't sound like Saturday. It doesn't sound like they're going to, but I think that's how they should handle it.
You're playing it like we're in the heat of the playoff race, middle September. You're fighting tooth and nail for every win here. I don't necessarily disagree with your thought process. I agree though that that won't be what they do. You brought up a good point though. They're tagging him for a couple runs. The Mariners have a couple swing arms in the pen right now that can give you 2 innings. Like Tyson Miller, Austin Voth. You said Trent Thornton. Sauce gave you 2 2/3. Like there's plenty of guys out there that can really eat at a couple turns through a lineup if you need to. You know what I mean?
I think especially Tyson Miller
Yeah.
is a guy they might be relying on because we didn't see him pitch in the last game of the Toronto series, obviously, because Logan was so good. Little mini Paul Sewald. He looked great in his first outing with the Mariners. He really did.
Yeah.
And I think that he's a guy, he's probably here to stay. Whether that be Colin Snyder whenever he comes back off the IL, maybe getting sent down or what have you, I don't know yet. The Mariners have time to figure that out. But I think Tyson Miller is a guy who probably should be first guy out of the pen from after Emerson Hancock.
The final match Sunday against the Cubs. Luis Castillo slated to start, but like you said, if they move some stuff around, it's possible. But Castillo against Javier Assad. Javier Assad pitched, like many other pitchers around the league, 2 starts so far this year. 1 against Colorado, pitched well. Another one against San Diego, not as good, but in 11 innings, he's putting up a 1.64 ERA. We know Castillo's ERA is like in the 6s. So take that with what you will. He's the first righty we will face in this series. You mentioned like Julio getting a day off. Like Julio, JP, and Polanco are the only guys that haven't gotten a day off. Given the roster, like maybe Sunday, if Julio's still reeling, like he's still scuffling, maybe we see Luke Raley in center field. on Sunday against a righty. You go Dom in left, Rayleigh in center, Haniger in right. Give Julio a day off just to reset. I don't want that. I agree with you. Like, you don't want to see him continue to scuffle. You said that he was useless. 1 for 5 with 4Ks is not great. He got a hit. It was an okay hit. And then he was trying to steal second, and a couple times balls were fouled where he had the base stolen. I'm not going to sit here and say that a 1 for 5, 4 strikeouts isn't basically useless, but it seems like he's trying to do something. He knows that he's like something's wrong. Like, he knows that he just doesn't have it. And if I had to try and pinpoint a guy that might be able to pull his head out of this series, I sure as hell hope it's Julio against two lefties and a righty in Javier Assad, who, one, he had a good year last year. He had a pretty solid year, but doesn't have this like crazy track record like Jose Barrios does like throughout his career. Like Chris Bassett being like, a guy for a long time. Javier Assad is a guy who really he's only been around the league two-ish years. Like, he's nothing special necessarily. He's good, but I'm not losing sleep over facing him. I want Julio to get back on the right track this year. I want him to get out of the slump, get out of the April scaries, and get into the May happies right now. Get ahead of it. Get early, because I'm tired of waiting. Sure, they won a game, great, 5-8, that's awesome. But like, it's the stars of this team that are holding the team back right now, and I just hope this Cubs series something changes with it.
I think that Julio, I mean, we've said it his whole career, he's pressing right now. And I think a part of it is because we know how bad this offense has been, and he knows that he's kind of the motor that makes the offense go. Mm-hmm. And because he's struggling, he's trying even harder. He's like, I got to find a way to get this offense going. It's kind of my job. Like, I'm the guy. And that's why I think getting back to like just fundamentals for Julio is so big right now. Again, we don't need the 600-foot home runs every time, but if he's able to hit a sac fly here, steal a bag here, just make a little goes a long way for Julio, because he's such a good player that if he's able to just and when it clicks, it's just going to click like that, and he's going to be back to being Julio Rodriguez. And I think the same thing goes for Jorge Polanco, honestly. I really do. Overall, the guys that the Mariners have brought in so far have not been stellar. Obviously, we haven't seen much out of Luke Rayleigh. Mitch Garver hasn't been great, and Jorge Polanco hasn't been great. Joe, I think it's time we discuss the narrative of the guys that the Mariners sent away, because I know everyone in the comments is thinking it. Let's talk a bit about it. First, let's talk about Teoscar Hernandez, Joe, and how good he's been with the Dodgers. What do you think changed?
It's the Dodgers. Like, he's got more protection, I think just, I don't know, like the Dodgers can take anybody and turn, like they took Chris Taylor and turned him into a productive baseball player. They revitalized Jason Hayward's career. That's just kind of what the Dodgers do. Is there any way to explain it? I don't think I can. I don't think I can confidently say with any sort of like, yep, this is why Teo's hitting better. It's just the Dodgers. They've got a stacked 1 through 9. Would Teo like feel more confident in the lineup that the Mariners are putting out this year, like on paper? Maybe. But it was always a conversation of like, he can't hit in T-Mobile Park or whatever, need something with the parks wrong. It doesn't matter. Like, it's just part of the narrative. It is what it is. I'm not particularly moved by guys that the Mariners moved on from or traded away, whatever, having success this year. That's if I were to allow that to weigh on me, this 5-8 would feel so much worse. And maybe that's why some of the fandom is feeling that way, just because they see Teo having success. He's batting .298 with a .916 OPS. He's got 4 homers and 15 runs driven in. Sure, he's struck out like 24 times already in 57 at-bats. You said it on stream, he's putting up what, like a 38% strikeout rate or something crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
highest of his career.
Yeah. Sample size is important. Do I think that Teo will continue to have good success in Los Angeles? I have no reason to say otherwise, because I expected him to have a good year with Seattle last year and it just didn't work out that way. I'm not particularly upset, and if people are, then that is their choice. I'm not going to lose sleep over the fact that the Mariners did not bring back Teo because of everything that we know about money involved with the ownership, and like that's a whole nother conversation that has been exhausted. And whether or not Teo would have even re-signed, it's just like, I don't think it was going to happen. Do you have anything you want to say about Teo before we move on to other strikeout king?
Yeah, particularly with Teo, I don't think he would have came back. He wouldn't have. He knew how bad his numbers were here. And keep in mind, before he came here, though, his numbers were great in Seattle. But again, small sample size. He's hitting in a lineup now where he doesn't have to be at the 4 hole. He could be the 7, the 8 hole for that team right now. He is hitting in a lineup with Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, and Mookie Betts. Nobody else has that, except for maybe the Braves. We'll get to them shortly, too. With the Mariners, he just didn't have that kind of protection. And again, when you were talking about the Dodgers' ability to go out there and fix guys, they have the hitting version of what the Mariners have with the pitching lab. They have the hitting lab. So it is what it is. I wish nothing but the best for Teo. He wasn't going to come back here either way. So people are like, oh, well, Teo's doing this, blah, blah. Cool. He wasn't going to come back here. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what he's doing. So I think that when he comes back to T-Mobile Park, I hope he gets a standing ovation. I hope Mariners fans love Teo because I love Teo. Well, I would have loved to have him come back this year. Wasn't going to happen. So now, Joe, tell me about Gino.
Well, he started off with a boom. They're playing the Rockies, the Diamondbacks were. He was hitting like 355, had like 7 RBI. Like, dude was scorched earth to start the year. Has come back down to earth, though. Not scorched. A little bit colder. On the season, Gino is batting 255 with a 689 OPS. So I would probably say worse than Josh Rojas. If I were to start pushing narratives, if we're really that fixated and whatever, we're fetishizing this obsession with Gino Suarez. Like, yeah, I miss Gino a ton. The good vibes could be useful in certain instances with his team right now. But he struck out like 25 times or 15 times already through 51 at bats. He's batting 255. Like, he's only hit 1 homer. Like, I'm not super moved by Gino not being with the Mariners from what he's given production standpoint. Of course, Gino, the human being, the good vibes guy, yeah, of course. That's like a no-brainer, but the conversation, I think, it doesn't need to happen.
Gino is up there with Nelson Cruz as my favorite human beings that have played for the Seattle Mariners. Like, just bring a smile to my face when I would see them. Gino, offensively, there's regression. It's undeniable. There's regression with Gino. The Mariners had to trade. The unfortunate truth is they had to get out from the salary to be able to make the moves that they did make. Now, you can argue, oh, well, Gino's doing this, whereas they use that salary to go sign Mitch Garver, who's doing nothing. This is true. In the end, I think all things will regress to the mean, and we can't really judge it until the end of the year. And at the end of the year, we can say, let's say Mitch Garver has a terrible year and Gino, continues doing what he's doing. We can say, okay,
they should have stuck with Gino instead of going here. Yeah, like, of course, like, that's where you can then have those, like, foundational conversations that have things to back it up aside from a 12-game sample size or 13-game sample size.
And Gino's defense, yeah, probably miss it a little bit over there at third base. I mean, that is fact of the matter. But offensively at third base, the Mariners, I think, are doing pretty much just as well. Like, maybe not with the home run power, the home run potential. How many does Gino have? 2, 3?
1.
Right, oh, he only has 1 right now. Oh,
yes.
Okay. So, never mind. I take it back.
They are on par. Luis Urias has a home run.
Yeah.
Sure, Rojas is doing, like, the heavy lifting otherwise offensively, like, with average and, like, other stuff like that. Like, sure. And, like, Urias is providing the power. It's like that platoon of, like, yeah, that's a 5-win player. Like, whatever Jerry said, that was out of pocket. But
yeah,
I get what you're saying. Like, we're not missing him that much aside from the good vibes.
Yeah. Again, miss the player. Don't necessarily miss the offensive production or lack thereof, because it is being replicated right now by 2 guys who are making less money. Now, that moves on to the big one, and that is Jarred Kelenic. Obviously, the Mariners traded him away in a basic salary dump, and Kelenic has been pretty hot to start his Braves career. Had some big moments. I think he tied a game against the
Mets.
Diamondbacks. Was it the Mets?
I'm not
Diamondbacks, something like that.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Nonetheless, he looks good in a Braves uniform. He's a constant tinkerer. We know that. He's been tinkering. But yeah, I think that, again, when it comes to Jarred Kelenic, we'll talk about his stats here in a second. When it comes to Jarred Kelenic, it is, again, the lineup around him is just the 2 best lineups in baseball, in my opinion, are the Dodgers and the Braves. And it just so happens that that's where 2 of our big trade or guys we let walk went.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit about his stats, Joe.
The biggest glaring stat for me for Jarred Kelenic, I'm going to tell you in a second. So, in 10 games, I said his age first. In 10 games, Jared's only had 29 plate appearances. They're using him in limited samples, like limited sample size. They're giving him opportunities to succeed, and he's doing it. That's just fact of the matter. They're not putting him in situations that will make him uncomfortable. They're putting him in win-win situations for Jared Kelenic, which is great. The Mariners could basically just not afford to do that, it seemed like, or they just never, enacted the right plan to do so. The Braves are doing that. He's scored 4 times. He's driven in 3 runs. His strikeout and walk percentage are roughly the same. He's got a 201 WRC plus right now. He's currently batting 462, 517 with a 577 slug. Don't need to do the math for you. That is an OPS above 1,000. However, the biggest outlier stat in all of this is that he is currently boasting a 706 BABIP. He's batting 700 on balls in play. If there's any stat to tell you that Jared Kelenic is one of the luckiest batters on planet right now, and more power to him. He's hitting the ball where they're not. That's great. But the fact of the matter is, Jared Kelenic will not continue to bat his BABIP will not stay at 706. Last year with the Mariners, it was 359. That is abnormal. That is completely unsustainable. And that's just the end of it all. That's just really where it stops. Sure, could Jared have been doing this with Seattle? We'll never know. Is it possible? Yeah, why not? But again, I'm not going to fixate on it because why would I do that? Why he was my favorite player for 3-4 years. Everything aside, I was defending him like my life depended on it. He no longer plays for this team. End of story for me.
Yeah, last year we know how good Jared was in April. He hit in 91 at-bats. He hit 308 with 7 home runs, 14 runs, 14 RBIs. He did strike out 28 times, 7 doubles in those 28 hits. He was running a BABIP of 368. That Jared Kelenic, in my opinion, is better than the one that we see with the Braves right now. Simply because he was running a more normal BABIP and still producing.
Yeah, his power was there as well. Right now he doesn't have much power to show for. Aside from some doubles, but go ahead.
When those numbers come back to earth, it'll be interesting to see where Jared Kelenic is in a month's time. Mm-hmm. Because, and again, I hope he's great. Same. I hope Jared Kelenic kills it with the Braves. Again, much better lineup around him. Different league, different division, obviously. So it's the Braves. The Braves, in my opinion, are World Series favorites for me specifically.
Even without Spencer Strider.
That's a tough one.
They'll have to make a trade for a pitcher probably.
Yeah, come the deadline, if pitching's looking a little rough, I could definitely see them going out and trying to trade for. I don't have anybody off the top of my head right now, but I think that Jared Kelenic has a role to play on that team, and I think he'll play it well when he is basically facing right-handed pitching. I think he's only had 1 start versus a lefty so far this year, compared to the 3 or 4 he had last year versus lefties at this point. So I don't know. It's impossible to say what's going to happen with Jared. I didn't know that his BABIP was that crazy, Joe. I didn't.
Yeah.
So that even changes what I was going to talk about. But I mean, we look at Dominic Canzone right now. He's been heating up, and he's looked pretty good out there in left field, as the replacement for Jared Kelenic or what have you. We haven't seen much out of Luke Raley yet. Obviously, hasn't been given the opportunity. I think that, again, we hope that these guys go out there and do fantastic. But with that being said, I still take the guys that we have right now, just in terms of production or what expected production, over those guys. Just because, and with Kelenic, it was never going to happen here. His attitude, it just didn't fit. It didn't fit here, which is unfortunate. I mean, we saw him, throw a tantrum every time he struck out. It wasn't going to happen. And hopefully he goes now to an organization with a pedigree of winning, and they can set him straight. And if he starts to see success, maybe we don't see those tantrums. Mm-hmm. If he starts to, look better on the field, maybe we don't see him get in his own head as much, and maybe he kind of matures a little bit. That's my hope for Jared Kelenic. Again, I love Gino. I love Teo. I love all 3 of these guys, and I hope nothing but the best for them. And I'm not saying they're bad players. I'm not trying to tell you that the players we have are better than them. We don't know. We can't know. I'm just saying that the comparisons between them, it's so much more nuanced than, well, these 3 guys have these numbers and these 3 guys have these numbers. There's more to it than that. The Mariners are getting ready to take on the Cubs, and it's only a matter of time before this team gets it going, at least We can hope. Thank you guys so much for watching episode 77 of the Hit It Here podcast presented by Bet Online. I got two people for you, Joe. I have Ryder Ryan episode of the podcast, but also spring training before his rookie debut, Brad Miller episode of the Hit It Here podcast. That's number 77. Appreciate you guys watching, and go Mariners.